What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We are here in beautiful Bend, Oregon, hanging out at the Happy Paddling compound. And behind me, I've got a boat that I'm really excited to show you guys. It's the brand new Crescent Shoalie. I have not really had a chance to mess with this boat. In fact, I just unwrapped it this morning. So what we're gonna do today is just a quick unboxing walkthrough, talk about the boat as we go. I'm no expert on this thing. Like I said, you're seeing it just as I'm seeing it, but I think we can walk through the features and learn together. So let's get into it. So the first thing I noticed when I unwrapped the boat is there's a couple bags of stuff. I thought we'd go through those together. One of them is their extra thick scuppers. They do an interesting thing on their boats. All the scuppers go right up the center of the boat. Typically you'll see scuppers on either side for support, but Crescent Kayaks have a lot of molded in features, a lot of stoutness built into the deck. So we got a couple of scupper plugs that go throughout the boat. Those come with it. Obviously, if you're in the river, you don't want scupper plugs in. This is for if you want to keep your boat dry on flat water. In the second bag, we've got foot pedals. There we go. And then lastly, we got a couple of Roto Grips. And I'm assuming they should go right here. To me, it's like a perfect place. If you park them here, you can put your paddle across. So if you're standing and you just want a place to set your paddle down, that's a good place to do it. I bet you could also like bring them in. Maybe stage a rod up off the front. Yeah, that's kind of a cool thing. You could also add, well, I guess you already have two cup holders. I was gonna say you could add another cup holder, but kind of cool. You can really do anything you want with Roto Grips too. If you wanted to have your paddle across right here, you could do that. I know I've seen guys set them up as paddle holders on the side of the boat. So a few different options there. So if you wanted your paddle going alongside here, let me grab a paddle real quick. I'm wondering if like something like that would work too. Yeah, totally. Of course, you also have this right here. Up here, you've got this little, I don't know, spring-loaded Velcro strap. It seems like it's a twofer. Like one, you can obviously slide a paddle underneath there, but then you can also have your rod stage horizontally and strap your rods down. So for transport, you can lay rods in here, strap them down, and it's cool. It has a little bit of bungee, a little bit of give to it. That's kind of neat. So let's check out more of this front hatch here. It's a rotomolded front hatch, so same materials they make the boat out of, which means you can get a lot more definition and defined edges. And it looks like they did a lot of that on here. Like they give you rod stagers, they give you little grooves for the bungees to clip on. On the inside, they've got a nice big gasket that seals onto this edge, which I bet that will be nice and watertight. This is interesting. A lot of times, especially on the Crescent light tackle, this big hatch opens up into the boat. In this particular case, they have it molded in. Looks like you've got internal rod storage right here. You'd have to kind of fish your rods down inside the boat. They give you this little circle deal. You know what I use this for? I always keep this in case I ever have to plastic weld the kayak. It's the spot they cut out that rear hatch in, but it's made out of the same material as the boat. So if you ever have to plastic weld or have a shop plastic weld, you've got the perfect color match and the exact same materials, same plastics as your kayak. So just file that somewhere. Oh, that's cool. I was like, what does this say? It's the name of the shoal bass. It's like I'm not going to say cataracta. I don't know. You look that one up. So we've got some extra strap here. Let's close this and figure out what that's about. I like how this bungee closes. I wonder how watertight that's going to be. But either way, it doesn't really go into the boat, so that's cool. This is like a long extra strap. I've never seen a front handle like this. Drew actually called me and kind of walked me through this idea before it was a thing. And I was like, oh, this kind of sounds brilliant. So it's a strap handle, just like you're used to seeing on a kayak, but it's set up on a cam lock, like a kayak strap. So I can now loosen this up and a couple things, like if I wanted to wade through the water with my boat, or if I needed to pull it through the water, I can do that. But then I can also just completely take the front handle off, because how many times have you caught a hook on your front handle and you can't get to it? So that's kind of cool. You can just take it all the way off if you want to. Then you have this built-in piece of Yak Attack gear track that you can add whatever you want to. That's all this is just Yak Attack tie-down points. So if you wanted to have, I don't know, a GoPro facing back or a bow light or really whatever you want, you can just attach it right to this track. In the cockpit, I noticed like you've got more rod stagers. These all line up with the hatch, so that makes sense. Here you've got a square box, which I'm assuming you're going to put a battery into. You know, if somebody want to mount a fish finder and have the battery in the boat, you could do an all-in-one unit there. You could also probably mount your fish finder flush, so just the face of it's right here. You know, what would that be? Probably a 10-inch fish finder. I'm sure guys are gonna come out with really cool custom mounts for that. I'll be excited to see what people rig there. Other little things, I already know what that's for. I've seen this on a few boats now. Little selfie spot. You could put your camera right in there. Get yourself your fish selfie holding your fish, right? That's kind of a neat little built-in feature. A lot of little stuff. I really need to watch the 20-minute long in-depth walkthrough because I know there's all little details that I'm missing, but on my long-term review, we'll really try to hit all that hard. They do a really nice double layer foam floor. So you got a great standing area, standing platform. This is for a catch board. So if you're fishing tournaments and you have to have a specific board, that catch board fits right down in here. But I like how they also just gave you the measuring device. If you just wanted to lay a fish in there, if you're just recreationally fishing, you can get in there and get kind of a rough idea of how big your fish is. A couple of cup holders, as well as looks like you have a paddle stager here, along with the little tracks where you could put the paddle here. So a few different options. Bungees on either side. Again, you could use that for rods, which I think is what most people will do, horizontal rod stagers. You could probably also use it for a paddle storage position. I also noticed it's got metal pad eye right up here. You could use a standing assist leash if you needed help getting up and down. They give you a nice secure stainless steel spot to do that. On the buckles, they use really nice buckles for everything. There's no cheaping out on the Crescent Kayaks. They really do stuff well. So they have a buckle here, padded buckle to keep things nice and quiet, and then a high-low seat position, and you can just crank that down to secure it. So if you're in rapids and moving water, you want that center of gravity nice and low, and if you're doing a lot of standing up, standing casting, you can just pop that seat up in the high position. They put little foam pieces underneath your seat, so again, everything's nice and quiet. Even in the cup holders, I like how they do that. They try to quiet the boat down, because if you're river fishing, you need the boat to be quiet, otherwise you're spooking fish. Let's just have a look under the seat here and see what we've got. Looks like we've got a few different tackle storage options. Kind of a spot for a Plano tackle box here on the side that would just go and bungee it in place. You also have a couple of spots right here where you could slide a Plano tackle box underneath your seat. Especially in the high seat position, I think you'd find you had plenty of room under there to fit additional tackle. Behind the seat here, you see that they didn't go with the traditional bungee. They went with these little straps, which I think are super cool. They're basically like little kayak tie-down straps. They also do a metal pad eye, so you have a solid anchor point in the front and in the back. But this way you could really tie down any crate you wanted. You could tie it down from 1, 2, 3 spots on each side. So tons of options there. Would be a great spot to put a black pack, or really any crate would fit right in there and give you tons of different attachment points. A couple of rod holders. Now these are interesting. They're made by Yak Attack, and I'm guessing it's just a rod storage, but it's going to keep it really low and flat. I know Drew's saying he's fished with me a few times out on the West Coast, and his thing was always keeping the rods low and out of the trees, especially when you're in the river. I remember one time we were fishing the McCallamy together, and I hooked up to a steelhead, and I reached around to get my net, and my net was sticking straight up out of the boat and had caught on a tree and got ripped off. Almost lost the fish, but thankfully I had another person there to help me out. So I know what he was thinking there, and I guarantee that's the deal, is to keep those rod tips down nice and low. So no flush mount rod holders like you're used to seeing. If you prefer vertical storage, you're gonna go with a crate that has, 3 to 6 rod holders that can go vertical. But I like the fact that if you can easily bring 5 rods, have 2 back here pointed down, easily have 3 across your deck, and not feel cluttered, not feel like you're snagging up your lines and stuff, which is really nice to have when you're bass fishing in the river. You wanna be able to switch things out quick. You want a spot for everything. You don't want your gear like sloshing around the boat. So that's kind of a cool deal. In the back here, they give you an access hatch, just a simple little twist storage hatch. Kind of interesting. I would have expected them to go with like a button style hatch or something a little bit more substantial, but just a little quick stow is what they did. And really this is just an access port. This is to get your hands inside if you needed to back stuff up. As I reach my hand in here, I feel that everything is sealed up with a well nut, which is basically a rubberized nut that as you screw into it creates a nice watertight seal. So all through the boat should be fairly watertight. We're gonna definitely test it. We're gonna get waves all over this boat and run in some white water, and I'll let you know how all this stuff holds up and how dry it stays. In the back here, you'll notice another handle, and underneath that handle, these little guys are chutes for drag chains. I know not a lot of people use drag chains, but river fishermen do, and this was definitely designed from Drew's love for river fishing. I've used them a few times on the river. It works all right. I found the best thing to do if I was river fishing is I would set up a mount like this with a little, I used a Scotty at the time, anchor off the back, and I would run a small little pyramid anchor. And that, for me, on the West Coast, seemed to be the ticket, just like a drift boat would do. Just a nice lead pyramid would stop me in my tracks. And I like the fact that they give you little bolt holes here. So you could run a power pole if you wanted to, but you could also set up a really nice anchor bracket. Or, heaven forbid, you wanted to motorize it, you have that spot where you can add a Torpedo or a Newport vessel or a Bixby, whatever. However you want to sell out, there's lots of options to do it. You can just mount those right here. I'm just kidding, motors are fine. I know you guys all love your motors. Kayak like this deserves to be paddled. This thing's got soul. Speaking of soul, let's flip it over and talk about it, because what really gives a kayak soul is its hull design. That's what makes it playful, that's what makes it fun, that's what makes you get in it and be like, yes, this is my kayak. So let's talk about the hull a little bit. So here's where the rubber meets the road, or whatever, I guess the plastic meets the water. The hull of this boat is really interesting. It's got Crescent DNA, but it looks very different than my light tackle or my CK1. The grooves are not as deep. So the tracking grooves that you see on the Crescent, like the light tackle, CK1, the crew, aren't as deep on this boat because it is a river boat. So you don't want the current to be catching all these different edges. So a lot more subtle, which is gonna also give you a quieter ride as you're pushing through the water. You're not gonna get as much aeration or bubbles slapping. You can see the kiss-offs throughout the boat. You know, I mentioned the scupper plugs throughout the boat, and then I talked about support. Well, they get support through kiss-offs, which are molded little, I don't know, little pyramid shapes that touch the hull to the deck and give you lots of support throughout the boat, where you're sitting, where you're standing. You'll also see a nice big buoyant bow. All their boats are known for that, but this one even more so. Look at that, there's not a whole lot of sharp keel to that. That's not gonna get hung up by whitewater. That's gonna give you a lot of maneuverability, a lot of control, a lot of resurfacing as you're coming through a wave. This thing's gonna wanna ride high and dry and just wanna always bounce back up and be on top of the water as opposed to being down in the water. If you had a kayak that was narrower and more flare, it's gonna wanna dive down into the water and up through the water, which is gonna give you a kind of a straighter ride through the waves, but definitely a lot wetter. As we move our way to the back, you see these kind of tracking lines pinch into a nice keel. Again, it's not too deep. I would say maybe, I don't know, 4 inches, but it's not super defined. It's not super sharp like you would see on just a standard recreational or like touring sit on top. It's definitely built for the river. So I get the feeling just based on the hull that it's gonna be very maneuverable, very playful. Probably not the fastest, probably not the best tracking. That's not really what this thing's designed for. I will say that you're gonna have a ton of stability. When I look at a boat that has this much width and this much volume out on the edge, you see that nice hard edge, that's gonna give you a solid secondary. And then that volume carries all the way to the stern, all the way to the bow, these big buoyant edges. This thing's gonna be absolutely rock solid stable. So you guys, that's kind of my first just initial walk through this boat, unwrapping it, looking at all the features with you guys. I haven't watched a whole lot of the marketing videos yet, but I'm going to, and then I'm also gonna take it out for a paddle. We're gonna get this thing in some whitewater. I'm not gonna bring any fishing gear. I just kind of wanna see what this thing will do. So we might take it down to the Bend Whitewater Park or maybe the Deschutes River while we're here and just see what we can put it through. So you're gonna wanna hit that subscribe button, stick around. Thanks so much for hanging with us today, you guys. This is Dan, wishing you happy paddling. We'll see you on the next one.